Tom Hanks, one of our screen legends. Why do you think he's such an amazing actor? What makes him stand out? And how is it working with him and in this particular role?
It's hard to pinpoint what makes him so spectacular, but there is something that he does, and it is captivating, and I think he's incredibly relatable. He feels like a real person, and he is a real person. All I know is when Matthew Rhys saw the movie for the first time, one of the things he said to me was he was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even see what he was doing. I was on set with him and I didn't see that magic behind the eyes." There's a lot that he does. And with this movie, I actually asked him to kind of do a lot with very little, to stay very still and hone in on a very vulnerable, very still performance.
And why did you choose this story for your follow-up for Can You Ever Forgive Me? And how do you see the landscape more broadly for female directors? Does it feel like things are shifting? You're getting the bigger budgets, you're getting more profile?
You know, when you're in the middle of making movies and your own career, and also in the middle of Hollywood and being one of the female directors who people are talking about, it's very hard to step back and be able to see it from that bird's eye view. So I can't exactly say. I can say why I picked this movie was just somewhere that's where my heart wanted to go. I have no sense of what I want my career to be bit by bit. I can just say where I felt like I emotionally wanted to go and where my heart wanted to go was working on this movie that made me feel in so many ways. In terms of how we're doing for female directors and non-binary directors, and I hope that we're getting better, but I think it's going to be a conversation for a long, long time. There was a recent study that came out that said things are looking a little better this year. I know I'm friends with so many incredibly talented female directors who have movies coming out this year, from Elizabeth Banks to Greta Gerwig to Lulu Wang, and we are all friends with each other and support each other. Casey Lemons, we're all kind of in it together, and I think we feel very strong amongst ourselves, but obviously there needs to be more of us. So I know that Mr. Rogers is not as well known here as he is back home, but he was a television host for kids who started in 1968 and was on the air in public television. I mean, a very lo-fi program that he had for 35 years. And the thing that was really radical about him was he really believed in giving children the tools they needed to deal with their emotions. And he never talked down to kids. He didn't believe in lying to kids. There's a famous story where he was asked if he would come onto Sesame Street, and he said, "I'll only come onto Sesame Street if you take off Big Bird's head and show the kids that it's a person in a suit." So he believed in telling kids the truth, and because of that, he also would do these really cool things where he would take people, like a very famous episode is he took them to a crayon factory, and you get to watch how crayons get made. But he was a really inspiring person. I think making a movie that is devoid of cynicism is sort of an act of rebellion and felt really vulnerable to me, but was something that was really important to me. You know, my last movie was about a woman who was incredibly cynical, and so it felt both good and vulnerable to make a movie that was going in such an opposite direction, and I really love earnestness, and I don't think that we need to always be cynical and sarcastic. And I think whether we need another Mr. Rogers right now, I think we all just need to try to be a little more like Mr. Rogers right now. This was a project that existed far before I was involved with it. It was a script that was on the blacklist in Hollywood, and I met the writers when we worked together on a television show and heard about it. At the time, it had a different incarnation going, and then at one point, basically, the producers sent it to me, and it was sort of the moment after I had finished my last film. I was coming up for air and starting to think about what I wanted to do next, and it was not at all something that I necessarily thought I would want to do. But as soon as I read the script, I was so moved, and I'm a mom raising a young kid, and I'm thinking a lot about how do we raise kind people in the world. And so Mr. Rogers' message just really resonated with me. I think the point of the movie, you know, we always thought about it as sort of a big episode of Mr. Rogers for adults. And the hope is that we can all kind of reconnect to our inner child and the parts of us that feel broken or feel cynical within the world today, and find ways to let go of that cynicism.